$40. That is roughly what it costs to build a sleep pod. A lightweight, waterproof, one-person shelter designed by 3 friends who met volunteering in a European refugee camp back in 2015 and came home to find the exact same freezing-to-death problem waiting for them on their own streets. It is a triangle of foil, tape, and bamboo poles, closer in construction to a tent you'd buy for a festival than anything resembling a house. And for someone facing a night below freezing, with no roof over their head, it can be the entire difference between waking up and not waking up. They are not the only people trying to solve that exact problem, on that exact kind of budget, and they are not the last people this script is going to mention who decided a life-or-death gap in the system was theirs to close personally, with whatever they had on hand. One other team, working an ocean away in a country with its own brutal winters, took the same basic idea and spent nearly 1,000 times more on it, wiring the same shape of shelter with sensors that call for help on their own, without anyone inside having to ask. In the UK alone, 1,611 people died while homeless last year, according to research from the Museum of Homelessness, a figure that includes deaths from cold exposure alongside every other cause tied to living outdoors, and separate government figures have shown deaths among people sleeping, rough climbing by double digits year over year, even before accounting for a single cold snap. Separately, the UK's own Office for National Statistics recorded 726 deaths among homeless people in England and Wales in a single year, a 22% jump from the year before it. People experiencing homelessness face a measurably higher risk of death from hypothermia than the general population, and outreach workers will tell you the actual killer. Most winters isn't the coldest night of the year, the one that makes headlines and triggers a severe weather shelter to open its doors. It's the ordinary, forgettable Tuesday night in between cold snaps that nobody thought to warn anyone about. That gap between a severe weather shelter opening its doors on the coldest declared night of the year and an ordinary freezing night with nowhere to go and no announcement at all is exactly the space both of these builds were trying to fill, from 2 completely different starting budgets. Ian Ashby, Justin Devereaux, and Pete Kenyon were volunteering together in a refugee camp in Europe in 2015, doing the unglamorous logistics work most humanitarian response actually consists of, when they started noticing the same brutal math repeating itself. People without shelter dying not from anything exotic, but from ordinary cold night after night, in a way that felt entirely preventable if anyone had the right cheap object to hand them. When they came home to the UK, they found rough sleepers facing the same conditions on their own doorsteps, the same exposure, the same lack of warning, the same preventable deaths, just without a war to point to as the obvious cause. It took years of prototypes and field tests, feedback pulled directly from the people who'd actually have to sleep inside whatever they built, before the design was ready to leave the workshop. By 2018, they had launched Sleep Pod, a charity built around one deceptively simple object. Sleep Pod was born out of compassion, Ashby has said. We saw people suffering through cold nights and wanted to create something practical that could help right away. It's a simple idea, but it saves lives. The design process turned into a study in doing more with almost nothing. The triangle tent shape was the most obvious solution, Ashby recalled. But the biggest challenge was ventilation, because the material was non-breathable. Too little airflow and condensation would soak the inside overnight. Too much, and the pod stopped holding any heat at all. He landed on silver bubble foil stretched over bamboo poles until rough sleepers themselves pushed back on the design. They told the team they didn't want to sleep somewhere that reflected streetlight and drew attention after dark. So Ashby wrapped the foil in black plastic instead, which doubled as a second layer of insulation almost by accident. A prison workshop building the pods later came up with a detail that made the whole thing properly weatherproof. A strip of black gaffer tape laid down to form a gully at the entrance, so rain couldn't creep in under the door flap. It's these details, Ashby has said, that come from listening to the people who use or build it. That's what keeps it real. Even the money constraint became part of the design philosophy rather than something fought against. If we had an infinite amount of money, we could make something 100 times better, he said. But money has a huge impact on design, and we improve as we go. Not everyone welcomed the idea. In Bristol, where pods were trialed for rough sleepers, a council housing cabinet member pushed back hard, arguing the city wanted to get people off the streets entirely, not make sleeping on them more bearable. Pods are not the answer, the councillor said bluntly, framing comfort itself as a kind of risk if it meant fewer people came inside for good. The same objection, in miniature, that would follow the entire concept of survival design for years afterward, in country after country, city after city. Sleep pods' own materials are careful never to overclaim what a 30-pound object can do. Sleep pod is not a solution to the crisis, the charity states plainly. It's one measure. The answer was never that a shelter replaces a bed indoors. It's that on the specific nights someone hasn't gotten indoors yet, a pod is the difference between exposure and survival. Ivan Edwards, a rough sleeper who was given one, put it more simply than any policy debate could. He said the pod gave him a new lease of life, and that even through brutally cold nights, having it gave him a real sense of safety he hadn't had sleeping exposed. Another person who received one described the difference in plainer, more physical terms. It definitely kept the warmth in so much better than sleeping out on the streets. It's a heck of a lot comfier than sleeping on the concrete floor. In Bolton, where the council ran its own pilot scheme, handing pods to rough sleepers over the coldest months, officials later reviewed the results and judged the program a success outright, enough to keep funding it into the following winter. That is not a typo. 30 pounds, sourced largely from donated materials and volunteer labor, delivered free through frontline outreach teams, credited by name, his name, with keeping someone alive through winter. Since 2018, Sleep Pod has distributed more than 16,000 of these shelters through upwards of 150 frontline charities across the UK and Europe, all handed out at no cost to the person receiving one, largely because the pods themselves are now built inside UK prisons alongside community workshops and corporate volunteering days, a production model that spans, in Ashby's words, community builds, corporate events, and prisons, turning the entire supply chain into what he calls a shared act of care, connecting people from opposite ends of a crisis who would otherwise never cross paths at all. Local pilot programs have since sprung up independently across the country. from Bristol's early trial to Bolton's council-run scheme, each one testing the same basic object against a different city's winter and a different council's budget. And Bolton's own review of its scheme called the results a success worth continuing to fund. If £30 sounds like the absolute floor of what a survival shelter can cost, wait until you see what happens when a city government decides the exact same problem is worth a research and development budget instead of a scrap materials one. In Ulm, Germany, in 2018, the same year SleepPod launched an ocean away, the city ran an internal problem-solving initiative called Wilhelm's Bureau, set up specifically to take on civic problems that normal municipal procurement moves too slowly to fix, and put a team of designers and engineers on a single brief. Build something that could keep a rough sleeper alive through a German winter night, starting from nothing but a deadline. The team, Patrick Kaczmarek, Florian Geiselhardt, Falco Pross, Manuel Schall, Dirk Bayer, and Catherine Uhlig, began brainstorming at 8 in the morning on a Thursday and had a working prototype by Friday evening. They called it the Ulmer Nest. Where SleepPod solved the problem with foil, tape, and bamboo, sourced largely from donations and built by volunteers in a weekend, the Ulmer Nest solved the identical problem with wood, steel, and a full sensor suite designed by professional engineers on a municipal timeline, backed by an actual city government instead of a fundraising page. Each pod is built to shelter 1 or 2 people, insulated and sealed against wind, rain, and humidity, with solar panels on the roof feeding a heat exchanger and ventilation system that keeps fresh air circulating without letting the warmth escape. Inside, sensors track temperature, humidity, smoke, and carbon dioxide levels in real time. A basic lighting system switches on automatically, and a motion detector paired with a GPS unit quietly alerts social workers over a radio network the moment someone climbs in, not to check up on them, but so outreach teams know exactly who needs a follow-up visit the next morning, instead of hoping they happen to walk past the right doorway before the person moves on. Each unit can house up to 2 people at once, which the SleepPod single-occupant triangle was never designed to do, and that added capacity, plus the steel frame needed to support it, plus every sensor wired through it, is part of what drove the cost so much higher in the first place. That level of engineering does not come cheap. Media reporting on the project has put the cost per unit at roughly €35,000, almost entirely development, testing, and hand assembly costs baked into the first prototypes, the kind of price tag that would collapse dramatically if the design ever moved into real mass production. But a staggering number all the same for what is still, functionally, one person's bed for the night. Every one of those euros went towards solving problems. SleepPod's designers had solved for free with user feedback and a roll of tape, ventilation, warmth retention, weatherproofing. The difference is that the Ulmer Nest also solves problems nobody had asked bamboo and foil to solve at all, like knowing in real time whether the person inside is even still breathing normally. Only 2 Ulmer Nests have been installed on Ulm's streets so far. The backlash was immediate and pointed. Critics dismissed the Ulmer Nest as little more than an art installation, arguing that money spent wiring a single sleeping pod with sensors should have gone straight into permanent housing or shelter beds instead. Some accuse the city of solving a photogenic problem instead of the real one, pointing out that €35,000 could fund months of an outreach worker's salary or a meaningful down payment on an actual apartment rather than a single very well-monitored tent. The project's own designers didn't dispute the math, they disputed the premise. Without concepts like the Ulmer nest, one of the team said, people would have no cover and would have to sleep outside, even in winter. Nobody on the team has ever claimed the pod replaces a home. They've been explicit that it's a stopgap for the exact nights when the alternative is sleeping exposed on concrete, not a substitute for the housing system finally catching up. They did not build something to end homelessness. They built something to make sure fewer people died of it on any given Tuesday in February, while everyone waited for that larger fix, the same ordinary, forgettable, dangerous kind of night. Sleep Pod's own founders had been trying to solve for a fraction of the price, using nothing but foil and bamboo. Neither team has ever pretended their object was the finish line. Ashby has said the charity is still studying how many seasons a single sleep pod actually survives, and whether people hand them back once they're finally housed, treating a $40 object with the same seriousness most builders reserve for something permanent. If either of these numbers surprised you, it's worth subscribing, because this channel keeps finding people solving the exact same emergency from opposite ends of a budget, in countries that have never coordinated with each other and never needed to. Neither project has resolved that argument, and neither one is really trying to. They exist in the gap underneath it, where the debate about the right long-term fix hasn't stopped a single specific person from needing somewhere warm to sleep tonight. £30 bought a shelter built from tape and foil that has already reached more than 16,000 people across an entire continent. €35,000 bought a shelter that can text a social worker the moment someone climbs inside it, monitor the air they're breathing, and run on sunlight, but so far has only reached 2 people on 2 street corners in one city. Neither number is really the point. What both of these projects agree on, from opposite ends of a spreadsheet, is that the gap between a freezing night and a survivable one is sometimes shockingly small and shockingly cheap to close, and that waiting for a perfect permanent housing solution has never been a reason to let somebody freeze in the meantime. $40 bought Ivan Edwards a night he still describes as a new lease on life. That is not a rounding error. That is the whole argument. Every project on this channel eventually runs into some version of that same argument, and it's worth sitting with rather than resolving neatly. Comfort and rescue aren't always the same goal. Permanent housing and emergency shelter aren't interchangeable line items in a budget, and the people actually building these things tend to understand that distinction better than the critics arguing about it from a comment section ever do. If this one got to you, the next video on this channel follows a very different kind of shelter, one where the builder didn't have tape, foil, or a design team at all, and had to figure out warmth from whatever the ground gave up for free.